welcome. You're watching Medically Speaking, and I am Meenakshi Upreti. Now, today we'll be talking about strokes. Strokes, which is a leading cause of death and disability in India. Let's talk some numbers, some figures. Around 1.8 million people in India suffer from a stroke every year, and its early treatment, the early detection is the only thing. It's the most crucial thing which can actually reduce morbidity and mortality. Now, there are a very few neurologists in India. The ratio of neurologists per patient is really skewed. And that's one of the reasons why we have all the experts who you see on our screen. They are from IIT Delhi or AIMS New Delhi, two elite institutes which came together and they created a comprehensive package, what they call CARE-DAT, for patients who are suffering from strokes, for caregivers. It has a gamut of things included in the same. I'd first of all like to welcome all my guests and introduce them. Further, I'll hand over to them to explain what CARE-DAT is about, what are the various ventures under it. First of all, I have Dr. Padma. She's a Chief Neuroscience Center from AIMS. Then Dr. Senthil Kumaran, Professor, Department of Nuclear Medicine Resonance from AIMS. I also have Dr. Y.V. Vishnu. He's an Associate Professor, Neurology from AIMS. And Dr. Amit Mahendrika. He's an Associate Professor from the Biomedical Engineering Department of AIMS and the IIT Delhi. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Padma. If you could just first of all explain have been undertaken under the same and give us a brief, for our viewers, those who are watching the show, on what exactly this collaboration between AIMS and IIT Delhi entails. What exactly is CARE-DAT? What are your objectives from the same, ma'am?
Thank you, Meenakshi, and thanks for having us on board. Yes, so well, stroke statistics are humongous, draconian in figures, and you rightly said that. And I think just to put it in perspective, as I speak with you, there's a stroke happening every 20 seconds and one stroke death every 2 minutes. So besides the fact that you draw home so wonderfully that yes, time is brain and you need to unclog an artery which is clogged, and every second which is lost, there are zillions and trillions of neurons which are lost forever. All said that, besides the fact that there is this glamorous part of it that you need to unclog, go in and give an IV medication or take in a stent and retrieve the clot and get the blood supply in time. Well, even in the best of centers, you will have just a percentage who would get this, And in fact, if you look at India, it's not more than 5% who are able to reach out and get this treatment. So what happens to even those who get this, and what happens to those 95% who could not get this treatment? So they're left with a disability. And that's the reason we say that stroke is life altering, because besides, as you said, mortality, death, it's a morbidity, it's a disability which alters life suddenly, severely, and forever. So in terms of disability, what can we do? Can we go beyond just saying exercise, live, ably, stop smoking, take medicines and prevent another stroke? Can we do something to a disability, to someone who's lost his speech, to someone who can't use the hand and leg, who can't walk, who can't balance, who's now in bed and is dependent on others for his activities of daily living, is not a useful member in the society. So for that, we were looking at ways and means of going beyond the conventional aspects. Okay. And in this, we thought we can have this the transdisciplinary sciences which can come together, which has been the focus across most areas of major public interest, whether it is pollution, whether it is climate change, whether it's a major disease burden. So in this, we partnered with IIT in the sense that can we go beyond exercises. So in this, the CARE-DAT program essentially is something to get the disability reduced and make a disabled person able to function. That's a broad concept. And besides that, we also have young entrepreneurship of our, our own research people, on my own faculty, brilliant faculty who come out with certain kind of, apps, which, this is the app world right now, Meenakshi. So we have apps for everything. So we thought, why not use this low cost India centric venture where India is the IT, almost an IT capital in at least a developing world. So in that, can we use this science and reach out to people who are physicians who are not neurologists? As you said, it is extremely skewed kind of a
Yeah.
ratio we have. Train them to treat stroke in a time locked manner. Again, driving home the point, the time is brain. So give them the modus operandi to when the patient has reached in time, give the treatment time. So these are the broad concepts. So further
Okay.
on, I would like you to get across to IIT Delhi
All right.
to
So
tell you about the biomedical engineering part, about those robotics and appliances and assisted devices
yes.
which help in making a disabled person able.
All right. So there are various aspects of it, ma'am, and thank you for explaining it so beautifully and, of course, in such an easy language for the layman. Now, talking about three various aspects. One, of course, is a glove, which, of course, helps a disabled person gain ability, some mobility, which you just spoke about. Then you have the app, and then, of course, you also have something called as impetus for educational institutes. And I'll be dwelling on all three elaborately. But first, let's bring in Dr. Amit. He's representing IIT Delhi today. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Now, as Dr. Padma was talking about, help us understand, because these shows are watched by a lot of common men. Very simple terms. Help us understand really what is the assistive technology which you have developed as far as it means that glove is concerned, or how are you, or how is IIT Delhi really collaborating with AIMS? How are these two institutes coming together and helping the disabled via technology?
Well, thank you, Meenakshi, for having us on board. So IIT Delhi and AIMS share a very unique mingle together. It's a joint activity that is very unique to the Indian ecosystem, where a technological institute pioneering in the technology or engineering world, and another is a medical institute who delivers real healthcare related solutions to the society. And CareDat is a joint venture of both the institute under the aegis of ICMR. And we have been working together for a long time now with the team of the clinical partners at AIMS. So far, we have developed two products right now. One is a robotic exoskeleton, which is for upper limb, which is exactly for wrist and finger movement, to do this kind of movement. You must appreciate this is a very important movement for activity of
it
daily
may
living.
sound very simple to someone watching it, but of course, for someone who's had a stroke, it really being able to do that does mean coming leaps and bounds.
Yeah. So this movement is very, very required for day-to-day activities like opening a knob of the door, doing your toothbrush, taking a bath, or buttoning your shirt. So these muscles are very small muscles and very delayed in rehabilitation after a stroke. Mostly patients are rehabilitated, and the movements of the shoulder, elbow, and the proximal joints, what we call, that is closer to the body, are much larger, bulky muscles, and they are rehabilitated much faster. Whereas these smaller muscles rehabilitate much slower. And as the patient undergoes physiotherapy for years and years, it's a very, very tedious process. Both patient, caregiver, and physiotherapist has to do that journey together to reach that endpoint where these small muscles are rehabilitated. Now, the idea was, can we facilitate with technology the recovery of these muscles better? So there is a science behind it, and there is a product which evaluate that science and come out with a solution. So the idea is, if we enforce patients to do this movement repeatedly with assistive technology, in our case, it's a robotic device, the brain will learn the skill to do this muscle. And in technically, what we call is neuroplasticity, that as a child learns the new activity as you enforce it again and again and again. So with the technology, if we enforce this to patient, the brain will learn this task over a period of time. And we have developed this device in last 4 years. It is now entering the phase 3 clinical trials, where we'll evaluate it on a large cohort of patients. And then the product would be ready for market or commercialization. That is little far.
Okay. Yeah. So I have follow-up question. I'm being very inquisitive. You said it's a low-cost exoskeleton. In a country like India, of course, it's the low-cost technology which is which is of course a low-hanging fruit, which we all really look forward to. Help us understand. You say it's a prototype. You have to test it on a large number of patients. First of all, how many patients have you tested it on? When you say low cost, what really is the cost? How feasible it is when we speak of rural India also? And have you got patents for it, sir?
Yeah, certainly. So we have patented this technology in India, US, Europe, and UK. And by low cost means the bill of materials, that is what we have spent to develop one prototype. Obviously, there is a cost which goes in research. But if you ask me to develop one prototype again, the cost has been optimized, and it is like within few thousands. Wherever the solutions similar to it, which are mostly imported, runs in like lakhs and mostly in crores. The idea is that most of these solutions are large, bulky, and are at large or big hospital or centers where patient has to go and do this activity.
Okay.
And it is not a medicine, or it's not a process that it will be done for a week and then the patient will be back to normal. It's a long process that has to go for probably months or maybe sometimes years. Now, there are limitations in our society that if patient has to go to a hospital to avail this facility, there is a cost of living for the patient, cost of living for the caregiver who is accompanying the patient. These are dependent patients, and they have an activity or cost or wages to earn, and that all is affected if this process has to be done over a period of years. Now, the low cost solution is very portable. It is like a desktop mounted solution. Physiotherapist can carry it to the home, or we can put it in a small PHC level or rural settings, or even at the panchayat level. Patients can come there, do the activity for 1 hour per day, and then go back home. And the device can be used by multiple patients to optimize the cost even further.
All right, point taken, sir. And apologies for digressing a little. Let's just come back to really more aspects of the same. Since we've spoken of this technological advancement, these prototype gloves which you have developed, let's now talk about the app. Dr. Kumaran, if you could just tell us a little bit about what the app entails, and as Dr. Amit also spoke about, the rural areas, how access to neurologists, access to physiotherapists is extremely restricted in rural areas. How do you think this app, which you all have jointly developed, how can it help, sir?
Meenakshi, if I may come in, app was developed by Dr. Vishnu, and that glove is being developed by Dr. Senthil.
So I think I should have I've asked a question from different people, but all right, Dr. Senthil, I've taken your question to Dr. Amit, so I'll ask you another question. Dr. Vishnu, why don't you take this one then? Thank you, Dr. Padma, for correcting me.
Thank you for having me. So the idea of the app is based on the concept that we don't have enough neurologists in this country. So it is not practically possible to have a neurology specialist treating stroke in all parts of the country. So this idea came from Dr. Padma's initially 5-6 years back, when she used a WhatsApp-based technology to treat patients in Himachal Pradesh, where have only 2 or 3 neurologists were there. When she showed that it was successful, so we tried to take inspiration from that and create an app where not only can help a physician to not only to have a neurologist in a tertiary center guide a physician sitting in a remote area on how to treat stroke patients, and also provide them a tele-rehab facility within the app. So we have developed the app, and we are trying to test it out in a cluster randomized trial along comparing with the stroke physician model. The other model is to just train the physicians on how to manage stroke patients once, and then leave them on their own to manage stroke patients. So we are trying to see whether which one of these things will work. If this works out, this app model works out, and it will be a great model for the policymakers to link the existing neurologists to the physicians across the country, so that everyone has at least a nodal neurologist who can guide them in managing acute stroke patients. So
all right, so why don't I take the question to Dr. Padma. Ma'am, tell us a little more about what are the type of activities you have planned for, say, the coming year or 2 years. Tell us a little more about these tie-ups which you have with ASHA workers, primary healthcare centers. How do you plan to take what you have developed, this technological advancement, to the remotest corner of our country, ma'am?
Thank you, Meenakshi. So actually, that's the crux of the issue, is that we do have the excellence in terms of the science, and also across disciplines, whether it's engineering, whether it is medicine, whether it is, bench work, which is, basic sciences, and which you've seen that in terms of need, how everything got together, and COVID, era was the perfect example for that.
Yeah.
Now, the only problem here is that sitting in ivory towers and confined to an urban setting is not going to work for our country. And we are concerned about our country, which is a prototype of a developing world. And we have a three-tier system of healthcare delivery. So we do have a primary, secondary, and a tertiary. So primary healthcare delivery system is primarily two things, Meenakshi. One is prevention, and the second is identification of a problem to be able to refer in time to the next level. Because at a PHC level, a lot of stuff cannot be done. In terms of whether, I can't have a CT scan position there unless I have a blood marker, like, identify a heart attack, you do with a pinprick and able to identify, you need a CT to identify a stroke in managing a stroke. So I can't expect that, and that is true across the world. So at a PHC level, the primary aim is prevention. Like in prevention, you have immunization, picking up blood pressure, the gynecological services, safe delivery, all these things come under a PHC. So prevention of an issue and identification of problems. So identifying strokes would be there. The second step would be as to what are those situations, what are the red flags where they're getting referred to a district level. Now, a secondary level, Meenakshi, will cater to a large section. Almost 70% of our population are in this wheel where they can access a district level hospital. And in that, you can have this healthcare system, both in terms of delivery of an acute care, that is, the app comes there, you can train the physician. And that's what when it happened in Himachal, and the first clot lysing or managing an acute stroke patient, a brain attack patient, was done by an orthopedician, because he was the one who was manning the emergency, and this is an emergency.
Yeah.
So brain attack, heart attack, trauma, these are all emergencies, and they are manned by the emergency physician. So that's feasible. We've proved it. We've published that. So at a district level, that's feasible. And the second thing, what is feasible is this low cost, the assistive devices, whether in terms of stimulating the brain, whether it is an exoskeleton which is portable, small little stuff which can be positioned at a district level and trained. So these are the things which you have been, it's possible to station them and deliver them, and it is also has a potential to for what is called a scalability, sustainability, and also upscale it. So I think that's a feasible option. And of course, tertiary care centers would remain the main hubs. And what I feel is that the future will depend upon networking and developing these wheels and have stroke maps ready. Like, for example, someone in your neighborhood has, God forbid, a heart or a brain attack. That person should know which is the nearest stroke-ready hospital that he can access. Not go haywire is to rush into some closed clinic or something. Then the valuable time is lost.
Yes.
So these are the networks which can be developed, and I foresee that in future this is a feasible option. So, and if we can demonstrate this by a good scientific method, and that is what we are trying to do, then we can give the results to the policymakers, and it can be then integrated into the policy making and implementation system in the healthcare system. And stroke is one of the identified and focused areas in both our non-communicable disorders and NPCDS program in the Government of India.
Well, absolutely. And, let me take this, thought forward. And Dr. Ramhed, take us through really, when can we see? Dr. Padma has, told us a little bit about the vision, but when do we see the app which you have developed, perhaps the devices which you all have developed together, when can we see a ground implementation of the same on a, if not a pan-India level, but a bigger level, outside of the sample figures we're talking about right now?
Well, certainly the objective is to get it out as soon as possible. And that is the vision that we all of us share together. And that is what we really want. Now, once the science and the product has been optimized, as ma'am has said, that it is scalable, sustainable, and the manpower at the district level can be trained to execute that process, then it is ready to launch. So if you ask me the timelines, I'm expecting that within next 1.5 to 2 years, we'll be able to finish the third phase clinical trial of the robotic exoskeleton device. Parallelly, we are communicating with a couple of industries we at IIT and AIMS, we have a startup ecosystem which is very strong. So it might be possible with some startups or with other industries. We are trying that after 2 years, it should be scalable directly after that, and it would be developed in parallel with the industry inputs. We don't want a lag there. Regarding the app, I think the app is scalable. Probably Vishnu will be able to tell better, but I'm expecting that at a small scale, not pan India, we should be ready to launch maybe in a year and a half, something in that range.
All right, Dr. Vishnu, let me take that question to Dr. Vishnu now. Dr. Vishnu, tell us a little bit about timeline as far as the app is concerned, and is the app strictly for perhaps physiotherapists, or can perhaps a layman also develop or download the app and learn something from it, at least basic physiotherapeutic techniques, if that makes sense at all, and implement for their, they're a caregiver for a stroke patient? Is that possible, Dr. Vishnu?
Yeah, so it's something to look forward to. I think it's a great idea to have. But at present, the app is for primarily for physicians and the neurologists. Whether the app has been made, it's been successfully made. It has been tested in the 6 tertiary care centers in the country. It has been tested in the district hospitals. Now we are starting with the study. The study has been initiated. So I think we think that the results should be out in a year. Maximum in a year, we should get the results, how the app performs in the trial settings. Once we confirm that the app works and it is as good as the stroke physician or even better than the stroke physician group or the standard of care group that we can provide, then it can be scaled up. The scaling up, the app has been made. The scaling up is up to the policymakers and the administrators, how much they want to take it up and implement it.
Meenakshi, I may want to come in here and say that, yes, as you said, eventually the app should also be what is, there would be levels as to what level the physiotherapy methods and methodologies to caregiver and family based rehabilitation has already been tested out, and this is a published trial. It's a major trial called ETEN trial, which has been published. So it is feasible. How much it is successful, we still are trying to grope for answers there, but that would be the final aim, that you are taking this back to the family, to the society, wherein everything is not dependent only on reaching out to a healthcare facility. You could also become self-reliant, and in that, apps will definitely help, and that would also be one of the main goals to be achieved in this.
Yeah, absolutely. And considering every second person in our country, even if you speak of rural settings, at least has a smartphone in their hands, and now with Digital India, Wi-Fi access is also becoming slightly better. It's not as much, of course, as compared to urban areas, but it's much better than than what it was 10 years ago. And Dr. Kumaran, since we're speaking of timelines, you've developed, of course, this assistive glove and other techniques. Tell us a little more about timelines you're looking, the number of centers, number of healthcare workers you plan to reach out to, sir.
Yeah, the smart gloves, the design part and the procurement is already on. So we expect that the prototype to be ready in 8 months, and we'll be able to generate sufficient data to optimize and improve the design in 1 year time. So within 1.5 to 2 years, we are ready with the first phase where the gloves will be marketed to the people. I mean, we'll be trying it out at various centers, and we can use it with a tablet, the low-cost tablet, which are available for 2,500 rupees, along with the smart gloves, and this will be given to the facility. The third phase will be to make it using actuators. Basically, some patients won't be able to move the fingers, the phalangeal joints, using the flexion or the extension movement or the supination and pronation. So there will be assistive devices like motors and actuators which will do that. So that is going to be the next phase. Okay. And the brain machine interface is going to be the third phase of that. And we'll be trying to achieve the low cost. We are not looking at cost optimization in the very beginning, and it will be after all the prototypes are ready that we'll be looking at the cost optimization. So by 4th year, we'll be able to achieve all the targets. But the simplest glove will be ready in 1 year.
All right. Point taken, sir. Timelines, of course, seem very practical. Dr. Padma, you had earlier spoken about how an orthopedic surgeon could take care of a stroke patient when emergency care was required. I believe a part of the, the entire program which you have developed is also giving these cross-specialization knowledge to people. You are also reaching out to medical students and colleges as well, or rather that's the plan via the app to improve stroke care, isn't it, ma'am?
Yeah, the app is, of course, the stroke care delivery system. And the other, the education module, which has been developed by Professor Rohit Bhatia. He is my senior colleague, again from my department. That's the impetus which we will not be discussing. It's not exactly a module. So that is also across how to take care of a stroke patient in a uniform way across the country can be implemented. So that's also a study form, and that's being developed by Professor Rohit Bhatia, my colleague in the same department. But the app part of it, as you said, yes, that is something which is hand-holding the physicians. And really, Meenakshi, if this really comes out to be okay, and if it gets this, in a way, this is a telemedicine. And you understand that the ICMR and as well as the Ministry of Health has come out with the telemedicine guidelines. And for these focused areas, that is cancer, the cardiovascular disorders, that is the cardiac primarily, the diabetes, and stroke. These are the 4 areas wherein along with the what we call as the part of ICMR with the ministry is coming out and is releasing the guidelines, and their meeting is on the 12th of this month. So this is such a hugely integral and important part now of healthcare delivery system, and this tele part has been really pushed up now, really upscale to a great extent because of the COVID time. We realize how important it is now to have the tele part of it. So the telestroke, part of the telestroke is what this app base is all about in terms of connecting distantly, remotely, expeditiously, and also judicious delivery of optimal healthcare for all.
Well, absolutely, that's the goal, and a very novel and noble goal. I wish you all the best. It's rather exciting, a very, very innovative technique which you all have developed, first of its kind in India. Looking forward. Thank you for giving us a very, very detailed breakthrough on it. It's been a very riveting session. Thank you all for joining us.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.